When analysing social behaviour, it's easy to think of social structures and forces as somewhere out there. As our discussion of social norms will show, however, that's not the case. Social structures have a material effect on us, influencing how we think, how we feel, and how we act. To understand that influence, we have to understand social norms, social identities, and group dynamics. This video will address social norms. And to understand social norms, we have to begin at the beginning of the human condition, with gestation and with birth. To take what we call a materialist perspective, a material sociological perspective in which our bodies are the cause of behaviour, we could say that humans, in order to become bipeds, in order to walk on two legs, developed narrower hips. And in order for human babies to fit through those narrower hips, they had to be born more prematurely, with smaller heads. If you've seen, for instance, a horse be born, the horse just kind of pops out. It horses almost straight away. Babies, as I've discovered, take a long time to turn into people. If I was in class with you right now, I'd be asking, well, how long before a human baby can start looking after themselves? And the boy sitting furthest to the back would say, about 18 years. And people would laugh, because that is genuinely funny. And it does take humans maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years until they can potentially seek out food, seek out shelter, water, warmth, keep themselves alive. And as a consequence of being born prematurely, socialization has a much greater impact on humans than with other animals. We not only live shared and social lives, we are socialized to enter into a pre-established society. And you can see the power of the social world in the human animal by the pain caused by language, by words. For many of us, any physical breaks you might have experienced as a child, a broken arm from falling out of a tree or whatever, has healed long ago, a distant memory. But that cruel comment from another kid or from a family member still wounds and still drives your behaviour, perhaps. And the embodied power of social influences is especially clear with social norms. So what are social norms? Social norms are the unspoken or unwritten codes of behaviour expected in a given situation. You can write something down and it still exists as a social norm, but generally you don't need to write them down in order for them to function. In, say, a Zoom class, I don't need to hold up a rule for my student that says, don't throw things at the camera. It's just something that doesn't happen. And these are not necessarily core normative beliefs, core moral beliefs. It's just the way things are done around here. For instance, in London, there's a very strong norm that you must stand on the right of the escalator so people can walk up on the left. It could be left rather than right. Doesn't matter, really, but that's the way things are done. And if you get it wrong, there's trouble. But for social norms to function, they have to feel natural. The problem is they're not natural to our bodies at all. Instead, they're very specific to context and to cultures. A lot of college students find that when they move out from their family house to college dorms, that things that they thought were just the way, behaviours that they thought were just the way it was done, are actually considered very strange. Easy example for me, in my house, my father turned off the sound on ad breaks every time we watched television, watched the TV news together, and we sat in silence. First time I tried to do this around my new flatmates, they looked at me like I was mad. And this is the silly thing with social norms, that you do look like you are mad if you get them wrong, if you break social norms or just don't understand it. You probably had this feeling if you've lined up in a restaurant or tried to pay in a restaurant or a cafe or maybe even a bar, and you don't know the system and people are looking at you, you can see they're judging you, and you start to feel anxious about it. And even though at your home restaurant you know exactly how to do it, when you get here, nope, you're in the wrong, even if it's entirely illogical. For instance, in London, in one of the escalators in the tube near where I work in Holborn in London, they try to make it so that instead of having one side of the escalator where you stood and one side where you walked, they said, well, if you do that, you might get 30 people standing and 5 people walking at once, 35 people on the escalator. But if we have it that 30 people stand on either side, we get 60. Much more efficient, very logical. People outraged. Could not be done. Lots of angst. Norms, in order to survive, norms do not have to be logical. They're just the way things are done. They recreate order. And if you want to see the power of social norms, try break one. I give you permission. Or maybe I don't, because if I gave you permission, that would spoil the game.